Hello, friends, and welcome to Your Daily Detroit. It is Friday, September 16th, 2022, and we have a very big show for you with a special guest. We're going to be talking about the auto show, some other things, related to it around town. But first, let's introduce everyone who's here virtually. First, you all know Devon O'Reilly. How are you, sir?
Hey, Jer. Great to be here and do a little triumvirate session of Daily Detroit here today.
Kind of gives people the clue that there will be three, and that means Eric Tritko. How are you, sir?
Jer, not too bad. It's been an interesting last few days.
First, I want to get a couple of our customary things out of the way. Normally, we'd be doing What Are You Drinking? But, friends, it is Negroni week. And if you're not familiar with the Negroni, it's an excellent cocktail. Devon, are you familiar with the Negroni?
Oh, I make myself very familiar every year with the Negroni. I think it's kind of a spring-fall seasonal drink that I really enjoy.
Yeah. And what do you enjoy most about it?
Well, Jer, I am a big Amaro fan, and specifically Campari. So I love that little bit of bitterness that mixes with the gin and then the citrus. It's just like a perfect combination of flavors for me. And I don't like a sweet cocktail, and Negronis are rarely ever sweet, and I really like that.
In case you're unfamiliar, it's a cocktail that's 1 ounce gin, an ounce of Campari, and an ounce of sweet vermouth. And then you can kind of adjust things as you go. But generally, in my mind, you keep the Campari. There's actually NegroniWeek.com where you can look up places. Some of our favorites are on there, Kiesling, etc. You've got She-Wolf, Sugar House, the Charlevoix over in Grosse Pointe, the Buell Bar, which I know you have frequented, Devon.
Oh, a place to go for all of your classic drink favorites, the Buell Bar.
Let's get to where we've been. Devon, where have you been?
Well, I will segue this beautifully because I had a take on a Negroni when I visited Bar Pigalle recently. The recently opened, I think it's been maybe a couple months, Bar Pigalle in Brush Park in the Carlton Lofts, the main floor there. I had the bitter end, which is a gin, Campari, Amaro, burnt orange elixir, and dried orange wheel cocktail that basically is a Negroni, but they don't call it that. So that was delightful. They've got a great cocktail menu at Bar Pigalle. There's a lot of whiskey, a lot of gin. They really do a good program of brandies and cognacs because it's a kind of that French inspired. You can get absinthe there. So they have a separate bar menu, and that's all not to say anything yet about the full kind of French bistro menu that they have. I think the frog legs have to be mentioned because it's so rare to get frog legs now, and they do them so amazingly that they were my favorite thing on the menu. So it was quite a nice trip. A little bit of a birthday anniversary celebration last week, and I had a great time at Bar Pigalle, as did my wife. And Jer, how about you? Where have you been on your urban or suburban travels?
Couple of things. So urban, I went to the University District Community Association's home tour last weekend. Great thing. Got to saw an awesome train set that's actually on our TikTok if you want to check that out. This guy spent, he's an architect. He spent 20 years building this train set. It's in his basement. Very cool. And of course, seeing the houses, they're all old, but the different takes people have. Some have gone more traditional. Some have opened up some of these homes in the University District. And to see just all that life in that neighborhood that I enjoy so very much. It's one of Detroit's prettiest neighborhoods to check out. And when this comes around next year, I think it's something that you should definitely think about going to. It's totally worth the money. You can drive around, walk around, or there was also a bus provided by the Detroit Bus Company, which was neat. Now, as downtown Detroit is kind of in a place where you basically need a reservation on the weekends to get into a lot of things, I had not done proper planning. And so I ended up making my way north of downtown Royal Oak up the Woodward Corridor since I was already there. And I tried Beppe, which I have never done before, on Main Street, just north of 11 Mile.
I have not even heard of that place, Jer. So I'm glad you ventured up to the northern Oakland County parts. How was it?
Excellent, actually. There was a rigatoni dish that was very good, a risotto that was right on point, and their cocktails. There's one called the Royal Oak Riviera, which I specifically recommend. The nice thing about this is that it's kind of a smaller place, so it's kind of intimate, but still open and airy, and they can really have the attention to detail because there's kind of limited seating. There's a bar there. I'll make sure to post up the pictures on Instagram to check it out. So if you're in that area of town, you're looking for another alternative that's pretty tasty, but a little bit off the beaten path, I can fully recommend Beppe.
I like it, Jaron. You are all about off the beaten path.
Eric, where have you been?
Well, currently I'm perusing the Bar Pigalle menu because, wow, this place looks amazing. But I have been at the Detroit Auto Show.
Ooh. Now, there's been a lot of anticipation around this. What is this going to look like after the schedule change, the hiatus? First impressions, what were your thoughts? Because you were there for press days.
So press days were interesting in that there was the news that the president was going to be there. What no one really told the media is how involved and how much of a pain it was going to be because the president was going to be there during the middle of the show. In past years, other presidents have come through. I think Obama was the last one to come through, and he came through during not during the middle of the show for the press. So there was severe security for obvious reasons coming in and out. And restrictions. And basically it was shut down for 3 hours while he was there. That said, those 3 hours weren't really missed because there wasn't a whole lot to see. In fact, as a media person, unless you had a lot of interviews to do, you could have walked the show floor, shot all of your photos, and probably done a write-up and needed no more than 2 hours in there.
Now, I used to go to media days. That is different than what my experience was.
Yep. So really first off, there were no real major announcements for the weekend, save one and a half. So on Tuesday night, Stellantis did a couple announcements, one for the 300C because it's going to be the last year of that vehicle, and they're putting the 6.4 Hemi in it, and they're doing a couple special edition Jeeps. So that was that, and that was down at the Spirit of Detroit. Last night, 8:00, Ford did a reveal with, oh, hey, it's the all new 2024 Mustang, except it's a mild rebody and a few other things in it. So it's not, it's a short evolution, not all new.
It's like a point update in the software business as opposed to a full version.
Yes, I would say yes, exactly, because the chassis is the same, the hard points are the same, the drivetrain's the same, the body's been tweaked, and they've put in some new. It's more than a mid-cycle refresh, but it's not a full redo.
So I'm not a huge car guy, but I want to jump in because I was hearing all sorts of stuff about the big Mustang reveal. I had friends and colleagues asking me, "Are you going to the big reveal?" It seemed like they were really hyping it up. And when I kind of saw it on social media later, because I did not go to it, I'd had the same thought of like, well, what's different? What did they do here? To me, it seems like they made a really big deal out of it. And the fact that was like the big reveal does seem a little underwhelming.
No, 100%. I decided not to go. I went to another manufacturer's after show party and probably had a better time and did a little more networking and made, and talk shop a little more there than I would have at the Ford thing. And understand that I am a huge Mustang person. I've owned 3 of them. I've driven absolutely every generation of Mustang, including the dreaded Mustang 2. I've been involved in Mustang racing organizations. So I'm not Mr. Mustang, but I'm, pretty much know it. And I had decided not to go because of a couple rumors I had heard and from some good sources. And I think I was 100% correct in not going to it because it's like, it's an evolution. It's not new. So, but not new and a good thing in the sense of there were a lot of rumors that was going to be a hybrid or electrified or was going to be on an electrified, future electrified platform. And none of that is true. So from my standpoint, those were good things. So I don't want to completely crap on Ford for what they did because they at least kept it a Mustang. So
for me, from a greater perspective, it's about its integration into downtown, its ability to throw off business, it being the kind of festival and fair that, maybe it had some extra shine because being alone during January, it pulled a lot of weight. But I'm sensing that there isn't the same scale here, that this is not the same sized planet that it was.
No, really, it was a hometown show. Lexus, Toyota, and Subaru had booths there. There were 4 BMW electric vehicles there, but I'm not sure it was really an official BMW stand because it was literally those 4 vehicles on carpet with 2 BMW signs. standing there. So it's not like that, BMW spent a lot of money. It might have even been one of the local dealers doing it. Other than that, it was, the North American car, truck, and SUV of the year. They had a huge display. There were some tier one suppliers that had large displays. There was an aircraft manufacturer, Icon, who had a display there. One of the electric hover taxi things, and I stress the word things, had a display there. And then a lot of like little tier 4 kind of things at the back for the, electrify everything kind of thing. So it was grossly underwhelming.
That worries me, honestly, because for me, I thought it wasn't just about the Huntington Place show, but the outdoor activations. How was that around there, what you saw?
Again, it was just the 2 activations that they had was the Tuesday night Stellantis and then Wednesday night with Ford, and that was it. So when I said there was really 1.5 announcements at the show, that was it. Chevy did show off the EV Equinox, which was a very early prototype. And one of the new Colorado, that also was a very early prototype, but those had already been announced and shown off a little bit. That was really all that was there. There were no real announcements. All the press conference stuff was really from suppliers.
I'm thinking about the fun side too, though. Like I heard about the giant duck. Did you get to see the duck?
I did see the duck. Yes. So story of the duck is, it's a Jeep thing. As you've maybe heard that phrase before. So the idea was a couple years ago that if people saw a really cool Jeep, they'd put a yellow duck on the hood. And so that's where that whole thing started. So,
Devon, this makes me think back to our previous conversations. I had this idea that there would be activations like in Grand Circus Park or, Paradise Valley or Campus Martius. And this was going to be a true, like, kind of sprawling outdoor show to enjoy downtown Detroit. And so far, and I've been around downtown, you've been around downtown, this doesn't feel like that's what this is.
Well, it's early, Jer. Honestly, it is, and I know this is media days, and there should be a lot more going on. But it is noticeable. I mean, I'm downtown most days during the week now for work, and there was definitely a little more buzz. There was stuff being set up. There were displays. There were announcements, tents, things like that. Now, I didn't get to see the full realization of all of that activity, but yes, the whole point of all this was, or at least half the point, was to really showcase the city and showcase downtown for people coming in. And, obviously it hopefully being a boon for local restaurants and bars and businesses. So I don't think we can call it yet, Jer. I think it's still yet to be realized. I think we need to give it another week to see what happens. But I would definitely like to see a little bit more activation downtown.
I think one of the things that had been talked about, and as I sit here and think about it, just off the top of my head, is there had been some talk about integrating this with the Detroit Grand Prix. And with the Detroit Grand Prix now moving literally downtown right in front of the place, I think tying those 2 events together would make way more sense. You could have the race, and then, that ends on Sunday, and then Monday is like a media day for the auto show or something, or vice versa, or somehow, the auto show ends and the Grand Prix starts, however you want to do it. But it would seem far more logical, far more synergy, and you could get something more than just hometown cooking for displays for the auto show.
Now, you keep mentioning hometown show, hometown cooking. For listeners who aren't as steeped in the industry, what does that mean?
Basically, in years past, say 30 years ago, the Detroit Auto Show wasn't the North American International Auto Show. It was literally the Detroit Auto Show, which was Ford, GM, and Chrysler. And so it was literally a hometown show. It was there for the local manufacturers in the local market. And that literally is what it feels like right now. It's just a small-ish regional show. I've been to the Miami show. I've been to a couple other shows. And that's exactly what it feels like, where really it's more the car dealers are bringing cars and the OEMs may throw a few things at them. But there really were only 4 concept cars at the show. So Lincoln had 2. They had the Star, the Lincoln Star, which was a pretty spectacular. Actually, both of Lincoln's concept cars were pretty spectacular. They showed one off at Pebble Beach a month or so ago, which is like a amazing two-door coupe that opens up like a clam. It's super cool. And then this Star, which is a SUV crossover thing in the spectacular sort of matte plum color with white interior and stuff. Anyways, that was amazing. And Buick showed off their Wildcat, which they showed that off at Pebble Beach. And then Lexus had something. There was really no signage around it, but it sort of looked like if you see the new Toyota Supra, it looks like an evolved version of that built for Lexus. So, but as far as concept cars, that's really all that was there. So that's why I'm saying it was just, if all the dealers brought cars, you wouldn't have noticed the difference.
I don't sense the same amount of buzz among friends leading up to this, and I'm not sure why. Any thoughts, Devon?
I mean, I think that part of it is when you're trying to restart something like the auto show, no pun intended, especially at a new time of year. This is a busy time of year. There's a lot going on. You got back to school. You've got, fall in Michigan. There's a lot going on. The auto show in January is kind of like the only thing in town. So I think there was just a natural gravity towards it because that's all anyone talked about because that's all there was going on. I think you're competing with more stuff. You're certainly competing with sports now, which I mean, it can't be disregarded that we have football back and Michigan is playing and Michigan State's playing and the Lions are playing, and so there's a lot of other things going on, and so it's maybe gets lost a little bit in the shuffle. And also, I think what is new, and that's what Eric kind of alluded to in the beginning, is like, why am I going to an auto show? Is it to like walk the floor and see a bunch of cars that are at dealerships and I can go online and find high quality pictures of and basically do a tour of the car online? Or am I going to see cool cars that I could never see in person or that I'll never get to sit in person? And if you're not really offering that, if you're not really offering kind of the box office visuals of really cool new cars and things like that, then you're not going to get the buzz. So I do think it does become all about the activations and the technology. And I think that's what you really have to showcase.
I still am going to go because I want to see the experience for the people. And I wonder if this is a show that's now going to be really just aligned towards those consumers and it just won't be the newsmaking show that was. I mean, it's $20 for the duck, right? Like I'm in it for the duck.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, Jared, what is it? I think we have to redefine success. I mean, first of all, like we've said, the whole idea of making news at the auto show is, I think, gone. It's gone for any auto show. I don't care if it's LA. I don't care what it is. These companies now exist in a constant timeline where they don't need to wait months for an event like the auto show to announce something big or launch something big. They just do it on their own and they themselves become the event. And that's a smarter way to do it anyway. So you can't begrudge them for that. So it's done. We're done with having this be a place to make huge, big, industry changing announcements. Forget all of that. But what can success be, Jerry, if we do this on a smaller scale, maybe at Huntington, but a larger scale throughout the city, and make it kind of a party to showcase the city and celebrate our automotive heritage and looking ahead to the future of the mobility industry? I think that's more of a realistic expectation.
No, I think Devon's got it right there.
One thing that was announced kind of adjacent to everything was about $105 million of federal money to go toward the turning of I-375 into a boulevard. This project has been discussed for years. I reported it out for Detroit Public Television, back in 2019. I went to a bunch of meetings, did a bunch of interviews, talked to MDOT. This is a project that's been around my world for a long time. And to see this federal money shot in the arm happen means that this is really, going to become a reality. It's going to become, pardon the pun, concrete. So I figured I'd open up the floor to people on their thoughts on this one. And of course, share also my thoughts or any of the additional reported facts that I've been able to garner over the years. Devon?
Yeah, Jared, I'll agree with you that this is a positive. We've talked about it, God, for so long. I mean, in essence, what you're really doing is kind of undoing things that have already been egregiously done. I mean, we talked about this, made news. I saw this on the front page of Yahoo because it makes for a catchy headline. It's, the racist freeway that was built that Secretary Buttigieg called it. The freeways are racist, and people tried to call him out on that and saying freeways can't be racist. But anyone who knows Detroit history knows that if the freeway itself isn't racist, certainly the people who designed it are, because it demoed a thriving black neighborhood in Detroit to create this just pass through, basically a mile or so of just pass through. So returning it to a boulevard, I think, is really cool. I'm someone like you, Jared. I love wandering and walking. I love kind of foot traffic and micro mobility. And so this is going to encourage a lot more walking between, like, you think about the stadiums, Brush Park, that area, which is like its own thriving neighborhood. That now connects much more nicely to downtown and the other stadium there, the other stadiums, Ford Field and Comerica. So I think it connects downtown more. It makes it feel less kind of separate and segregated. So I think it's overall a positive. I mean, there are going to be questions, of course. It's a lot of money to invest in basically kind of turning a freeway into a boulevard. But I am encouraged by it, and I'm glad to see that it's going to happen sooner rather than later. It was going to be 2027 before it started, and now we're seeing that it's going to be starting in 2025.
For me, crucially, is the connections to Lafayette Park and kind of making that more of a holistic neighborhood. I have my own skepticisms about how much it's actually going to repair any damage that was done, because a friend of mine sent this to me and I thought it was kind of on point. The dishes are done when it comes to eliminating Black Bottom and Paradise Valley, unfortunately. And what my hope would be is that developers, Black developers, have the ability to get in on the action of the land that's going to be freed up by, turning this into a boulevard. It's going to take less footprint, which means there's going to be developable, try saying that 10 times, land in that area. And for me, traffic's been going down in that area since 2009, way before the pandemic. And I think it's a better evolution for what we need today. Eric, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I've got some mixed thoughts on this. A lot of the narrative, and I agree, was it a terrible thing that putting that freeway in destroyed neighborhoods? 100%. But a lot of the narrative seems to imply that, well, now that's going to be fixed. You can't fix something that's been gone for 50, 60 years now at this point, right? But now what? So you're going to put a boulevard in there. What does that accomplish? How many businesses and housing developments or apartment complexes are going to be able to be put in that area? And that's a lot of, I hate to say this, that's a lot of dirt.
It is, but lost in this conversation of all of the equity bits, I talked to an MDOT spokesperson before the pandemic, and yes, costs have increased, but they've increased for everything. Turns out it's going to be 25% cheaper to turn it into a boulevard than replacing all the infrastructure that has not been touched since 375 was built. The bridges, the iron, all that stuff would all have to be replaced anyway.
Okay.
The reality is this bill is coming due either way. Politicians are wrapping it up in the equity piece, and there is an equity piece to it. However, this is really about saving money, because you're going to have to spend money on this anyway, and then targeting it as an equity piece opens up federal dollars that you can then use for this project. Because historians will tell you Black Bottom and Paradise Valley actually extended, yes, 375 was a very important part of it, and Hastings Street and all that. But all of Lafayette Park is built on bulldozed black homes. Okay, like that's it's called urban renewal, but many in town will call it Negro removal to create Lafayette Park. And it was a very intentional act. It's part of why Albert Cobo's name was taken off of Cobo Hall, because he wanted to remove black people from the city, more than 100,000. And then Black Bottom ran all the way up where I-75 is today into my area of the North End where I live. So it was an extensive section of town that was over a series of steps removed, that if you really want to bring it back, you need to bury all of 75, right? So there is a narrative here, and I understand it, and I see that the points to it, but it is but a step. And I think it's only a step because we have no guarantees about equity or any of those other things. And so for me, I feel like doing the reporting on this, I think it's a net benefit to the neighborhood. I think adding infrastructure and having connected downtowns is really important. But I also think it saves money. I think it's the lesser cost option, and nobody is reporting about that in the rest of the media.
Yeah, Jer, I think you're very astute to point that out. And I do, level setting and kind of expectations of what this is and what this isn't. And you're right. It's more than anything. It's a construction project. It's, urban planning. It's creating a more walkable, bikeable, connected downtown core and greater downtown area. What it's not is it's not returning any neighborhoods. It's, Black Bottom is not going to all of a sudden come back. There's not going to be, new neighborhoods necessarily created with this. That's not what it's going to do. So I think people probably should temper their expectations. And I, like you and, others probably do look at this with some skepticism in terms of, from an equity standpoint, I mean, is it really going to do anything to increase equity? Are we going to choose minority developers and companies to work on this? I don't know. They haven't said that yet. So that remains to be seen. So kind of let's keep an eye on what it is and what it isn't.
Yeah, and if people want some history on Albert Cobo and all that stuff, I had a great conversation with Kenneth Coleman, who is a historian about Cobo and all those sorts of things. And I can put together some different resources. Another historian who can speak better into its own words, because really I can only speak to like the nuts and bolts and economics of things. If you're talking about the community itself, go look at Jamon Jordan's work. He's the historian for the city of Detroit, for voices that, aren't me. Well, Eric, thanks so much for stopping by and sharing your insights from the media days at the Detroit Auto Show.
Thanks for having me. Always a pleasure to be on the show.
And Devon, always good to talk with you.
Great to be here, Jer, as always.
All right. Well, with that, I'm Jer Stays. Remember that you are somebody, and we'll see you around Detroit.